So we finally got our studio set up a little bit. We got wood paneling, faux wood paneling. We got big fat, big red. We got lights and props. Props are the most important thing. All right, welcome to Broadlines, where we have our rapidly being built studio with the big board, with Big Red. But we are here to talk about the Rams and the Saints. 3-point line, open at 3.5 in some places. I still have the arrow. We still have trends and points and still Big Red. This is a game where everything we have is pointing in the direction of the Saints. So let's talk about it at a high level. What are your thoughts on the game overall? We have the best 4 teams in football playing. This is going to be a really good game, at least on paper.
This should be a great game. It was a great game when they first played back in November. It was a game that the Saints won 45-35, a ton of points, a lot of drama at the end. The Rams got back into it late, but then the Saints held on. I expect this to be a really tight game, and it's one of these games where, I'll be honest with you, I don't like the Saints. I don't like Sean Payton. I think the guy's a dick. And it's where your head and the trends and everything that we've researched and looked at kind of points in the direction of one team. But yet I'm not sure. And so let's get into this a little bit. I think it kind of starts with the Saints' success at home in the postseason. They're 6-0 there in the Superdome under Sean Payton. It's going to be tough for them to roll in there, the Rams, and get a win in this rematch.
Yeah, I mean, look, so every trend, you talk about Saints being at home, obviously they're very good at home. Then you got Jared Goff on the road. But let's talk about Jared Goff without Cooper Kupp. He's averaging something like 90 in the 8 games without him this year. He's clearly his number one target. He's averaging something like 90 less yards per game. His QB, all of his numbers are, guess which direction? Down without Cooper Kupp, right? The Rams' offense is not as good without him. They're also not as good on the road, like most teams, but pretty drastic splits for Goff. So Jared Goff, touchdown to interception rate at home, 22 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. On the road, what's that number?
10?
And you can't read it.
9?
9.
Yeah.
He's not that good on the road. So you factor in, now you have a young quarterback who I'm still not sold on. He's probably the least good quarterback remaining in the playoffs, right? I mean, you have 2 MVP, Hall of Fame caliber guys here. Drew Brees, Hall of Fame. And then you got Jared Goff, who's good but not great, playing on the road in a tough situation without his top receiver, in a spot where he struggles. And oh, by the way, you have high-scoring teams. You have a high-scoring offense in the Rams. Drew Brees, against the spread, teams that average over 30 points per game during the regular season overall. Drew Brees, 13-3 against the spread, and teams that can put up points because he can put up points with the best of them. So everything about this game in terms of the quarterback, the home and away splits, is working in favor of the Saints.
And it's one of the biggest reasons to take the Saints, honestly, when you look at the quarterback comparison. Who do you trust? Do you trust Drew Brees or do you trust Jared Goff? And, you talked about how the Rams' offense isn't as good without Cooper Kupp, and that may be so. I would say it's also a very different offense. You see that it's become very run-heavy, and you saw that against the Cowboys defense that everybody just was in love with over the second half of the season, especially. But I mean, between C.J. Anderson and Todd Gurley, and I think that they're going to look to establish the same type of game plan in this one. Sheldon Rankins went out early in the game last week against the Eagles. That didn't matter because they lost Brandon Brooks, and then on offense, they couldn't do anything after that. The Eagles had 99 yards of total offense after they jumped ahead 14-0 in that game. But as much as we want to talk about Drew Brees, I do wonder a little bit, is this the same guy that we make him out to be? If you look up, one of the points that I have on the board here is offensively, they're scoring 24 points a game, just a shade over 24 points a game over their last 8 contests. They've struggled. They put up 20 points a week ago against an Eagles defense that was down Brandon Graham at one point. Fletcher Cox was playing on one leg for a lot of that one. The secondary was in shambles. It just hasn't been the same offensive juggernaut as it was going back to that first Eagles-Saints matchup where they dropped the 48 points on them. However, to your point about Jared Goff, I have another one for you. He's 3-9 against the spread against quarterbacks who have won a Super Bowl. Drew Brees has won a Super Bowl. And I just wonder if he's going to be able to go into this hostile environment and outgun a team that has played exceptionally well at home over the last 2 years. Saints are 15-2 straight up at the Superdome. This is a tough spot for Goff.
Speaking of outgunning, I think we left this one out too. Drew Brees 10-1 against the spread with the Saints. against teams that average over 30 points per game. I'm not sure if you said that.
Yeah, no,
But
13-3 overall, but 10-1 with the Saints. He's been outstanding against high-scoring offenses.
So obviously it's been a different Saints offense. I think the last couple of years they realized they had opportunities to win the Super Bowl, didn't. They kind of did that Boston Red Sox thing. Remember the Red Sox like loaded up on right-handed power hitters because they had the monster, and never really pitching, never really small ball. Then they started doing that, and then they've won like 3 or 4 World Series since, right? The Saints are a little bit that story. Last year they realized they had to get some defense and start being able to run the ball. So you have Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara, obviously a world-class two-headed monster there. And they've really beefed up the secondary. Now, Marshawn Lattimore, outstanding. I think their defense is better than they get credit for. They were pretty good. I would say almost really good last season, right? They were not good to start the year, and then everyone's kind of down on them, right? They are averaging, giving up 14.5 points per game over their last 8, if you discount giving up 33 to the Panthers. So I know that's cheating a little bit. But 14.5 points per game. They're playing very well. Part of the reason I think some of the numbers against their corners are really high, teams have to throw against them a lot, right? So you have Lattimore and Eli Apple. Lattimore's very good. Apple does a respectable job, which is why I like, with the Rams, we can talk about this in a minute, Robert Woods. I think he's got the best matchup. He's going against 109th Pro Football Focus. I don't even know his name. The corner for the Saints.
It's late.
He's got a good matchup, but overall, the Saints D is really good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know that. I just think they're very well balanced. They looked really good last week. That is the worst the Nick Foles offense has looked since the Bucs game early in the season, and this is after the Eagles beat the Rams and beat the Texans and beat the Bears. Like, they moved the ball against good teams, and they really struggled against the Saints after those first 2 drives. I think the Saints D is better, and I can't even make a case for the Rams in this game. And I know that sounds crazy, but I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. They're going to have to throw a lot. Like you said, their running game has been better. The Saints are the better team. The Rams are probably playing from behind, and the only guy that really, I think, has a good matchup is Robert Woods. That can't be their whole offense.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just going to come down to, can they run the football? The Saints have been very good against the run this season. They're a top 5 run defense, really top 2 run defense in the NFL. How much does Rankins being out affect their ability to stop the run this week? If the Rams can control the line of scrimmage like they did against the Cowboys last week, then they're going to be successful. You put Jared Goff in 3rd and short, 3rd and medium range situations, I think he'll be okay. I really do. If you get him in those 3rd and longs, I doubt his ability to convert in those situations. There's a couple other aspects, though, about this game that I want to touch on real quick. And I have it on the board here. In the last 2 years, 16 games, and if you count the postseason game, obviously, in the last 17 games for the Rams, they've only been an underdog 3 times. And that includes the first matchup when they were in New Orleans. They were favored in that game. So this is really unfamiliar territory. They haven't been an underdog in any game since December of last season against the Seahawks, and they blew them out of the water. They won the game by like 35 points. So I'm really interested to see how they respond in this role. They are unfamiliar there. One concern I do have a little bit of, I would say, I don't even know if it's a concern, but one thing I kind of find interesting about the Saints. The Saints had a lot of success in the middle of the season against the spread. They actually lost their first 2 games, and they ripped off 9 covers in a row. But they're 1-5 over their last 6 games against the number. And I just wonder, are they really the team to beat moving forward, not only this weekend in the Super Bowl? Because when you look at the Vegas odds, I mean, they should win it. They're expected to win it, and almost overwhelmingly so. But I just kind of wonder about their ability to really run away from teams. I know it's a short number, but they haven't been good against the spread lately, and I just wonder, is this team still firing all on cylinders? You talked about how good their defense has been in recent weeks, but if you go back over their last 8 games, they're only scoring 24 points per game. So this isn't the same explosive offense that it was earlier in this season.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said. I think the line is a little bit interesting because this year you had this story of the road dogs, right? Yeah. I think there's been a lot of public action on the road dogs. Therefore, you got this line depressed a little bit. It started at 3.5. It's come down to 3. Typically not a great sign. I love going against kind of like the general consensus here. I think, at home, and again, it's concerning because at home, the Saints, whereas most home teams are a 3-point favorite, they effectively get that extra point for their home field advantage, the turf, the dome, all of that stuff. The fact that it's down to 3, that gives me a lot of value there, and that's why I like it. Another point here. in the playoffs, right? In the playoffs, teams that average 30 points per game are 16 and 23 against the spread. Road teams that average 400 yards per game, or teams that average 400 yards per game, are 13 and 20 against the spread. Now, one of these applies to the Saints, but these are numbers that also kind of work against the Rams. And then there's a crazy road dogs. It's like road dogs in a dome on the road in the playoffs are 0 and 2 if they average 400 points, 400 yards per game. I know that's like a super small sample size, but there's a lot working against the Rams in this game.
Yeah, there is.
Do you have any prop bets?
Yeah, I actually like Alvin Kamara. He was held without a score a week ago against the Eagles. I think they'd like to establish him early in this football game, make him a little bit more of a focal point if possible. And so I like him to score a touchdown in the first half, and you get plus 165 at FanDuel with that.
So Robert Woods, the corner he's going up against is P.J. Williams. He's Pro Football Focus. He's number 109 in coverage out of 119.
A quick thing on P.J. Williams.
matchup.
You know who P.J. Williams is and why he's important in postseason history?
Go for it.
He's the one that gave up the touchdown to Stephon Diggs last season.
There you go. So I like Robert Woods over under receiving yards, 74.5. Your best value there is at DraftKings. In some spots, he's up. BetStars has an odds boost where he's got like 79 receiving. Somehow that's a boost to take the over at 79. You can get it 74.5 tonight, Thursday night at FanDuel. I like that a lot. I don't really have any opinion on the over-under. I think this is probably a game that goes over. There's really no reason why it shouldn't. That said, the Saints D is a little bit better than I think they get credit for, and I wouldn't be surprised if they win by 2 touchdowns.
One word on that real quick, talking totals. Bill Vinovich is your referee in this game. Last 3 seasons, the under's 29, 18, and 1. And so he has been a ref that has been fewer penalty yards in his game, almost by like 22%, and that's kind of held scoring in check. So just something to keep an eye on. You're talking about 2 potent offenses inside a relatively attainable number considering they scored 80 points in the first matchup, but just something to keep an eye on.
Do you have a pick?
I do. We have all this information. It's all pro New Orleans. Jared Goff scares the hell out of me. He does. One other thing I'll say, and we kind of didn't even touch on this, 10-0 teams in the championship game the last 5 years. So that's something that's really worth looking at. And the last team to win on the road was the 2012 Niners in the NFC Championship game. All that said, I still like LA. I just like the way that they're running the football. I just don't think that this Saints team is the same team that people think it is. And the public, I think, is kind of on it. The sharp money has been on LA early this week, and I just think there's a reason for it. So I'm going to kind of go against the research here, and I'm going to roll with the Rams.
Okay, there's too much point in the favor of the Saints. I think their D is better than they get credit for. If this doesn't become a shootout, thing's going to win it. Is the Saints defense, is their corners. Robert Woods the only hope for the Rams in my view. So if I am taking the Saints -3 right now, the bet, by the way, start at 3.5. So you're getting value here. You're getting a 3-point line on the Saints at home when they're the 1 seed. Got to take that all day, every day. At BetStars, it's -120. I believe that's the best value as of Thursday night that you get. Send it into Big Red. We like the Saints. You got anything else?
No.
So that's it. There's the camera turn. How was that?
Yeah, it was good.
The camera
Strong.
turn good. I got
With
the arrow here.
Yeah.
That's it for the Saints and the Rams. Be sure to follow us. We got more broad lines betting stuff coming up. We're going to have content hopefully every day. Once we're into baseball season, we're going to have daily baseball videos. Like, we're going to get real weird around here. Anyway, we'll get some props. We're working on the set. Be sure to hit the follow button. Where's my arrow? Be sure to hit the follow button, like, subscribe, wherever you're watching. Just follow it, and we'll point in the direction of more betting videos. And subscribe. Get the notification squad. I don't even know how that works on YouTube, but I guess you'll get a ping when we put the video up there. We'll see you next time.
Jazz hands.